Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our monthly Fund It Fast chat. This is our 5th installment, and we're looking forward to continuing to bring you project financing information every single month that is both helpful and easy to digest in a brief and interactive way. All of your microphones are unmuted. So whenever you have questions or comments during this presentation, please feel free to chime in. Also, if you are at your computer, feel free to use the chat box as well. It's located on the bottom right of your screen to submit your questions. And if we can't get to any questions during the call today, we will follow up with a response as quickly as we can after the call this morning. Just a couple housekeeping items. Because everyone is unmuted, please keep in mind that we can hear your background noise. So if you are listening in from somewhere noisy, please go ahead and mute yourself so everybody else can hear clearly. And I think we are ready to get started. So without any further delay, I would like to introduce Maria Fields from JouleSmart Solutions. She is the Senior Vice President of Business Development, and she is going to talk to us about a very cool program that can help you realize expensive savings at your municipal facilities. So I will now turn it over to you, Maria.
Good. Hi, everybody. So thanks, and I'm, thanks a lot for the team for pulling all of this together. Very, very much appreciated. So again, it's Maria Fields from JouleSmart Solutions, and we provide holistic solutions for small and medium facilities, whether commercial or municipal. And this is a big gap in the market and one that we are focused on addressing. And our solution integrates technology and financing into a package such that we are installing, doing what we do, and the solution goes in with no cost and requires no risk on the part of the customer. So that's really a fundamental part of what we do. A couple of points just on process. I have, the slides are dense, and I was thinking that it would be a nice resource for everybody leaving the presentation, but I've definitely violated many of the rules of PowerPoint presentations. So I won't go over everything, but hopefully it will be a resource for you. And please ask questions, whether now or later. I know I can talk fast, and it might feel like the train is kind of leaving the station and you can't stop it, but I know that everybody's off mute for a reason, and please stop if there's anything, because it can often provoke a nice dialogue. So, so thanks everybody, and let me just advance my slide here. So I'll keep chatting. I think it might just be on a little bit of a delay. But the the basic backdrop of what we do, and it's similar in other states. There we go. Is that we are, there's this very, very busy, activity of goal setting and legislative initiatives and things at the Regulatory Commission that are happening in California, very similar to what's happening elsewhere. And I know everyone on the call is living through this reality, and it is a lot of change. I would say, a key driver, especially in California, is the abundance of solar, which will become the least cost resource during the day, and will cause a lot of the grid to be restructured. The energy system will be restructured around that. And also the key part of what JouleSmart is doing is really driven by control and communication technology that has really developed to the point where there's very cost-effective solutions out there for smaller and smaller customers. But the truth is that most of these small customers really don't have access to this. If you look at our smartphones and the way that that's changed the way we communicate, there's nothing really in parallel to that is going into smaller buildings to date, and that's really the opportunity that we see. So in general, there's a drive towards more data, more control, more building management, and the engagement of smaller buildings in fairly sophisticated solutions that really engage them to the grid and make them really part of the grid infrastructure. Move towards pay-for-performance programs, which really drive that connection between what happens within a building and the pricing of electricity, and also financing programs in California as a key way of delivering on California's goals. So, so these goals and mandates are often delivered through discrete programs, and and that can result in, and I spend a lot of time talking to customers. I often describe this as kind of the carrots and the sticks. There are things out there that are trying to draw people towards these more sophisticated solutions. There are also, there are also pricing signals that can be pretty painful as ways of enticing folks towards more control of their energy use. But what's happening to a large extent, that in terms of my perspective on this, is there are many discrete programs. There's a lot of benefit, and if you're bundling them, there's a tremendous amount of benefit to these. But it is also complex, and in some ways, the more that's added to the bucket in terms of what people are expected to process and pay attention to, the more paralyzing it can be. So so there is a lot of benefit out there. We've all heard it in efficiency. The benefit of many of these different things is really out there, but it's more and more difficult in many ways for folks to make a sound decision, and that's whether it's a commercial customer or a government. There's really increasing capacity and expertise required to access this benefit, and it's hard to move forward. Another key thing that is important in this space is that the contractors and service providers who are typically serving these buildings are typically also a discrete, they offer a discrete service or product or widget. So there aren't that many who are combining several different pieces of equipment or technology into an integrated solution, and that's a fundamental source of benefit, and it's just a challenge in the industry because there aren't that many folks who are doing that. So we would say to a customer, is a lighting-only solution at this stage of the game is not really leaving the customer with that much value. There's really a lot more value there, and you want to be future-proof. There's a lot of dynamic things that are going to be happening especially in California. Things like peak day pricing and critical peak pricing. Those times you can't just set it and forget it. Now it'll probably change next year. So you really need to be connected and communicating in some more sophisticated way to take advantage of all this. So what we do is really provide a holistic solution that's turnkey. And I won't go through all the complexity of this slide. I'll kind of cover it in future slides. But it's basically an integrated solution that requires no out-of-pocket cost and no risk for the customer. So we're really saying, these sophisticated multi-measure solutions are really where the value is. But and we want to kind of educate customers on that. But in the end, it's really our expertise and our capital and our performance that is on the line. So we're really coming and saying, we'll bring all that as sort of an energy concierge. We'll bring that to the project, make the project more valuable, and take on that risk so that the customer doesn't have to do that evaluation. So, the result is really 20 to 40% savings, deep and persistent savings over time, and it's the over time that really is the source of a lot of the benefit. And the value of this really comes from integrating all of this technology and gathering up the many benefits that an integrated solution provides. So the key part of what we do and what enables the management of the building is a set of technology that goes into the building that sets us up to be able to do what we do. And it can be lighting, although if folks have done lighting, that's not a deal breaker because most of the value comes from building management and HVAC. But we can do lighting. We also put in controlling thermostats, a sensor and control package, and we're putting in a building management system into a building that typically doesn't have one. I mean, we rarely run across a building that has a functioning, optimized building management system, and that's a primary source of savings. And then we're connecting all of these systems in the building into this building management system and managing that through the cloud. The same cloud-based oversight goes to the facility owner as well, which can provide them tremendous benefit. And one of the things that we're doing is we're putting in especially in California, this is important. We're putting in a control or VFDs into the HVAC units on the roof. So, typically they might be kind of coming on and off, and they might be coming on and off in a way where it could be all of them on, all of them off. There's a tremendous amount of demand spiking that can occur with that. So the system allows for those systems, for the HVAC units to function in a coordinated way, and to also learn and operate in a variable way, so they're not at 100% on, 100% off. They can vary according to what's needed. So that package really goes in, as I said, with no cost to the customer. And the way that it works is that we come in and we fix the customer's bill at their historical mathematical average. So we take 12 months of their historical usage and say, that's a fixed amount now. We put in the equipment that is going to save money, and out of that reduced utility bill, there's now a gap between the old and the new bill. So with that, we pay ourselves back for the equipment that we put in, which is typically about $100,000 worth of equipment. And there's an active oversight fee, which is a source of this management. So we're managing the building and keeping it scheduled and all that according to the customer set points. And then there is typically a remaining surplus that we share with the customer, with 70% going to them and 30% going to us. And the key thing here is the alignment that we have around creating that benefit. So just as a for instance, we have no incentive to jack up the cost of what we put in, because we really need that to pay back in terms of performance. That's really where the alignment comes in. We also, and I guess another point, we also will look to keep folks on the right tariff. If it's peak day pricing or critical peak pricing or time of use, that might change next year. And so we make sure that they stay on the right tariff going forward. And that we do that because we're sharing alongside in creating that benefit. And one of the key points here is also that we have performance insurance that stands behind that savings strip. So, so we're really bringing a very assured solution to this market that doesn't really have that. And the key thing for the customer is just to get across that, that's something that should provide them some assurance that, number one, if we get the math wrong, it's really our risk. But even the savings numbers here have Munich Re and Hartford Steam Boiler standing behind them. So there's a sense of this being in a more assured solution. So one of the things that, often comes up at this stage for customers is, so where does this money come from? And it's really, the key point is that a holistic solution that's managed over time creates much more benefit than a discrete equipment install. So that is, that's something that I think the industry has talked about for quite a while. And, what we do is, instead of really asking the decision maker to believe wholeheartedly in this, we're kind of saying, look, we'll come and we'll make this happen. We have the expertise. We know where the revenues are, and we'll bring that to the project. So one thing that, just to point out, the peak day pricing, which I mentioned, is something that provides, is going to provide more and more value. There's the way that really works is that there's a lower tariff year round in exchange for a much higher tariff during the peak events, which are announced ahead of time. So for customers, there can be some nice value there, but it really requires understanding that, communicating with the Cal ISO, and being able to manage the building and have, because people are operating a business and don't want to have, customer discomfort and that kind of thing. So it's something that requires a building management system, requires somebody who's going to stay on top of that pricing. Another one is the rebates. There are typically, discrete equipment can access a deemed rebate or prescriptive rebate, and those are really going by the wayside. And more there's going to be a movement towards either a custom or a performance-based incentive that really aligns around deep savings and persistent savings that are maintained over time. So those are things that can bring value to the building, and much more value than discrete, equipment. And it's something that we're bringing to the table through what we do. So in terms of just the nuts and bolts of what we do, we really manage all aspects of the implementation of these projects. So we're coordinating typically with the utility to get the filling data and incentives, OBF financing. We get folks qualified for that. These sites are ADR 2.0B compliant, so there's a nice rebate that comes with that. And they do participate in current and future demand response programs like peak day pricing. And one of the things just on this slide is really that this is really how we take the project from the time we meet the customer to the time that the site is commissioned, and then we have a 5-year relationship with the customer while we're kind of in the service arrangement with the customer standing behind performance. But one of the things that's helpful to know is just we do partner along the way with several different folks. It can be a utility, it can be a local chamber, it can be other partners who have who are aligned around creating either economic or sustainability benefits locally. And one of the things that is very true about the customers that we work with is that they are really not national chains. They're not very large buildings. These are the kinds of buildings that really predominate outside of large cities. And I would even say, Fresno, where I spend a lot of time, is a city like that. They just have just miles and miles of these kinds of buildings. And it's the kind of building stock and business stock that folks are really looking to support, whether it's a government partnership or these other groups that I've listed here. And this one of the things that we do in various places we work is we partner either through providing some visibility for folks, or a big one is just the measured greenhouse reduction. Everything we do is based on ongoing measurement and verification, and so that's a nice source of just data on energy reduction and greenhouse gas reduction. And one of the things that we can also do is work alongside and even fund local partners for some of this work, whether it's outreach or some light technical work or even deeper technical work. It's one of the things that we find is an important part of what we do. So what we're doing is we're really bringing in that transaction that's aligned around performance. It's all transparent. That's the part that we want to do. The rest of it, we work with local contractors and local partners. So that's the basic structure of what we do, and this is pretty self-explanatory. It's the buildings that we work with are just all of the kind of retail, office, that dental clinics, that sort of thing that predominate in the kind of suburban and small cities. The only thing we really don't work with is manufacturing or industrial, just because the building loads are typically driven by things that we aren't really impacting. So in this case, sometimes a restaurant might have a slightly smaller energy efficiency, outcome, and that's partly because of their other energy uses on site. If it's Planet Fitness, it can be much larger, but they all basically work. So so that is it. And I guess if anybody has questions, or now or later, happy to answer questions now, or or I guess you can follow up with the folks on the team and ask questions later. And I think everyone's getting a recording of this.
Yes. Thank you, Maria, for all this great information and being here with us this morning. This program is so wonderful because it's turnkey, and it kind of pulls elements from so many other programs together all in one. So before we close out, does anybody have any questions? Pam has a question. Hi, Pam.
Hello. Yeah, so Maria, we've spoke briefly before, but I'm really interested in kind of figuring out how to proceed. Do you have some, references that we could follow up with, and like, do you have kind of a minimum number? I mean, I know what the total spend needs to be, but we've discussed we're in a pretty remote area, rural area, and so.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be like a minimum number that you'd like to see to come up, to kind of make it worth your time to come up and make these initial visits, or kind of what is the process, I guess?
Yeah, the process, it really isn't, we don't require a minimum necessarily. It would be nice to have a couple of projects to work on, but we can come out and certainly work on a pilot site. And typically that's how we get started, would be to just take a look at a building that you think is would fit the bill. And and don't worry if it doesn't end up being quite the right thing. There's a little bit of a learning process at first. So that shouldn't be a hurdle. And I didn't mention that, but sometimes the underserved communities or hard to reach communities are left out of certain programs, but that would not be the case here. And in terms of references, we've worked with, I've got folks from PG&E who we can certainly put you in touch with. There are folks in New York where we're working with a similar program that does require a pre-qualification, so they've looked deeply into our energy saving estimates, and that's a program that requires performance and demonstration of performance over time. So that would be one that I can point you to, and then we have customers that you could follow up with.
And then it's always hard to ask about this, but sometimes you do have to have funding to keep your doors open. You mentioned that there's like some funding sources or some foreign funding available. How does that work, kind of on a case-by-case basis, or is it like per lead, or I just don't really have a sense for.
Oh, for partnerships to work alongside us?
Yeah.
Yes, that we would work, and I can send you some information on that, but we would work with commercial partners often who we work this way with, and they're sometimes, it sometimes can be a terrific way to work with a local partner which is basically in the same way. And that can be we usually try to keep things more aligned around just the throughput of projects and performance, because that's really where everything comes for us in terms of getting projects in and getting that performance is really the important thing. So it's typically around projects coming in the door, projects saying yes and signing on, but there are performance payments around that, in addition to other retainers or things, because marketing, for us, we would need to come into a community and do a lot of that. So we can work to partner to really have much of that done by a local organization, which actually can be better for everybody in a way, because you're really more known in the community, and each community has a sort of a different range of folks who are involved and with somewhat different motivations, region to region. So we can chat about that, but it's something that we actually look to do when we come into an area.
Great.
Thank you both. Lauren Seymour also has a question. She asked, how has JouleSmart partnered with utilities in the past to encourage deeper energy savings?
We have worked with, because it's interesting, just in a high level, the partnerships and the goals that I had on that page are, in some ways they're similar for utility account reps. They're trying to create deep savings and measured savings across kilowatts, kilowatt hours, and therms. So there can be a nice partnership between the utility account managers or account reps who really know those customers and often have data that helps to target the right kinds of customers, and a solution like this. Of course, customers can always go with something with a lighting or some other solution. But if someone wants a comprehensive solution, it can be a nice way to achieve that. And I think for the utility, it's also an easier path. As I mentioned, they're trying to achieve their goals through often these discrete programs. So reps may be going to a customer and saying, I've got an HVAC optimization program that's going to be great for you, or I've got a source of financing that's going to be great for you. But it can be slow going, and integrating all of this into a package that doesn't cost anything can be just a nice solution for everyone. And then because that's what we do, we're really there to make sure that the project gets carried through to commissioning, and we would keep those reps informed about the progress along the way so that they can support their customer.
Great, thank you. Lauren, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. And I was curious also if I thought I heard that they've worked with PG&E, maybe on a larger scale. I didn't know if there was a specific program.
You were a little quiet, but yes. So there was there was a program that was driven by the demand response group in PG&E. Interestingly, that was really the source of a lot of the work and a lot of the projects that we currently have in California that came really out of that program. So that was something that was driven by demand response, and it was really the idea was to pull together all of the different bells and whistles that PG&E offers into one offering to the customer. But what they really wanted out of that was these small bits of automated demand response. And that was a pilot of that approach of how that works for customers. And again, I think demand response is one of those things that can be a discrete single measure solution that doesn't really work for a smaller commercial customer to just pursue demand response as a single activity. So it was a pilot around that comprehensive solution.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us this morning. This chat was hosted by the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization. A recording of this chat will be posted on the SJVCEO website later today. And we are having our next chat next month, November 13th, and we will be going over on-bill financing. And so please look for communications from us in the coming weeks about that. And please share this chat with somebody you think might benefit from this really great information. So thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.